We now cross over to Port Elizabeth. We zipping across the country, and as we told you on the agenda we set the agenda for the day. We now speak to Lerato Fekisi, our reporter down in Port Elizabeth on the Omotoso rape trial that's currently underway. We know they took a break a short while ago. Lerato, thank you very much for joining us. We spoke to Veronica Fourie earlier this morning. The numbers seem to have grown behind you. It seems that there are people out there, and I assume that most of those are Omotoso supporters, or are they not?
Absolutely correct, Tabi. So what you see behind me are members and supporters of Pastor Timothy Omotoso. Earlier on when you talked to Veronica, there was just a handful of people, but throughout the day now we've seen more supporters coming out in their numbers. I'll step out and shout, Marcus can just show you all that you see there just behind me. All of those people there, Tabi, so are all supporters and obviously members of the church that Omotoso is pastor over. It's been an interesting morning, Tabi, so really a tug of war between Judge Zilwa and also defense lawyer Terry Price. Now, this was only supposed to be a bail application, but when we were in court this morning, Tabuso, we heard that there's actually 3 applications being brought forward. One, that the investigation be done by this court as to why there's been so much delay pertaining to this court. Remember that Mr. Omotoso was arrested 3 years ago, and ever since then, it's been a stop and start affair concerning his trial. Secondly, the defense lawyers also asked that Timothy Omotoso be granted bail, and then thirdly said that the 2 witnesses, Andi Zito and also Lerato Fekisi, they 2 witnesses, that their evidence be squashed because they felt that this evidence was not crucial for this investigation. So Judge Zilwa said that in his own law, according to him, that this specific court cannot lodge an inquiry or an investigation about why there's been delays, because the criminal charges against Mr. Timothy Omotoso are being heard at the trials court. So this specific court doesn't have the jurisdiction to do that investigation. Obviously, defense lawyer Terry Price disagrees to him and said that, you know what, can I give you heads of arguments, read through them, and then after that, I hope that you'll be convinced that this specific court has the capacity and has the right to do an investigation as to what led to delays in this court. So now, right now, we have adjourned until 2 p.m. to allow the state and to also allow Judge Zilwa to read through these heads of arguments. And he said that, Mr. Price, already I'm convinced that in my capacity I cannot do an investigation about the delays in this trial. That's not according to this court. But Mr. Terry Price is saying, you know what, read through the arguments and perhaps then you'll be convinced, and then only then they'll move the second part of the motion, which then deals with the bail application of Mr. Timothy Omotoso.
So maybe just for the sake of our viewers, Timothy Omotoso has been behind bars for a long time now, I think going on 4 years. Why was he initially refused bail, if you can remember? Because I think part of that was, could he be a flight risk? And maybe that's why the state is opposing. Is that why the state is still opposing bail, Lerato?
Yes, there were concerns that he could be a flight risk, and that's why he was actually not granted bail. This is actually the 4th time he's applying bail, and you can see that every single court agrees that the trial must run its course, and only then, when the trial is running its course and he's found guilty or not guilty, he'll be released. But all the courts so far have said, because he's a flight risk, that they don't feel that it's right for him to be outside of the courts, and rather it's safe for him to be rather inside jail and not outside. So that's pretty much the reason why they've kept him in jail now up to 3 years, because he was arrested in April 2017.
When he was found or apprehended at the airport, a lot of people saying that was touch and go, because that's when he was making his escape. But here's the question again, Lerato. Those people behind you, they've been there almost every single time Omotoso appears at court. It seems that, are the numbers dwindling? Maybe I can ask it that way. Are the numbers in supporters and fans dwindling, or is it the same brisk number of people that still believe that their number one is innocent of all these charges?
You know what, Tabiso, what's really been interesting is that although they are members of Jesus Dominion International, but when they refer to Pastor Omotoso, they call him Daddy. When he walked in court this morning, the part of the Jesus Dominion people were inside the church. They actually stood up and said, hello, Daddy. So he's not just a pastor to them, but to many of them, he's what you call a spiritual father. So it goes beyond just seeing him as a pastor. And that is why you see people behind me who are so passionate about coming out to support him, because not only is he just a a pastor who obviously gives them blessings and so forth and so on, but to them he's like a father figure, and that's why they are coming out in their numbers. When the trial started about 3 years ago, the numbers were a bit bigger, but the numbers have throughout the time now a bit decreased. But to see this many people here in court after 5 months where the court wasn't proceeding because of COVID-19 also shows that this man has got a huge support system, predominantly from his church, who like how I said earlier on, sees him as a father figure, a pillar to some, a healer to some, a spiritual father to some, and that's why every time he's in court, they come out in numbers to support him.
Lerato Fekisi, thank you very much indeed for updating us on that trial of Pastor Omotoso. We'll come back to you. Hopefully the other programs on point around 2 o'clock will come back to you when that court returns and we get an update with that bail application. Lerato Fekisi speaking to us there live from Port Elizabeth.